Commander. Part of your mission to Alpha Centauri will involve making planetfall on as yet unknown worlds. Your lander will be key to these missions, enabling you to reach whatever fascinating biotopes or research sites you deem most relevant. It is also your primary way of gathering resources for repairs and refueling. To begin a lander mission, you must achieve stable orbit above the planet, as explained in our previous briefing. Once in orbit, you can safely let your autopilot take the controls. Before dispatching the lander, be sure to consult the planetary data that will appear on your screen. This will of course only appear if your scanner is functional. Key information includes resources detected in the landing zone and points of interest for your crew to explore on foot. The most important, however, are the factors that determine the risk of a lander mission, including gravity, convection, and severe planetary conditions like earthquakes. All of this is combined into a general mission forecast, grading the difficulty of making planetfall from harmless to deadly. Only take on higher risk missions if you desperately require resources, consider it essential to explore a site, or have equipment to mitigate the atmospheric conditions. After launching the lander, autopilot will deliver it safely into the atmosphere. As the pilot, you take over in the final phase by firing and pivoting the main engines to come in as smooth as possible. A second pair of thrusters is installed on top of the lander to help right it after a crash, or apply downward pressure on worlds with high wind speed, low gravity, or underwater resources. Remember that you have two piloting options available, absolute and relative. Try both to see which you prefer. We recommend experimenting in Mars's relatively safe atmosphere. Each planet's survey map shows where you will find resource nodes and points of interest. Resource nodes are blue for gas, green for minerals, and grey for metal, with points of interest that you can land on labeled in red. To reach them, attempt to find a flight path that keeps you in the air while moving in a gentle arc towards the destination. Do not be discouraged if your first attempts aren't smooth, especially on planets that are also challenging you with winds and extreme gravity. Use short thruster bursts as you get closer and try to touch down gently. If you miss the target spot, close the difference with short hops. If you have landed at a point of interest, the comm screen will open up for your EVA pilot to contact the ship. You can conduct exploratory missions over the radio, including exploring alien biotopes, looking through ruins, or bringing samples back to the ship for investigation. At drilling spots, the mining interface will appear instead. Watch the readout of lander systems. If they turn red, the drill is overheating and you risk damaging the lander. Use it in short bursts. Next to the lander, you will see the probe data that shows how far down you have drilled and how much of the current resource remains. The further down you go, the higher the risk of explosions that will damage the lander. Stick within green and orange zones if you can. Collecting gases is safer but trickier. You need to hover above the spouts and hold the mining button to absorb the resource directly. We recommend trying this on planets with little convection and low gravity. A steady hand is required to get the most from these opportunities. Occasionally, you may have to harvest gas from a gas giant. Here, there is no ground to catch your fall, and both the wind and gravity can be intense. Go too deep and the lander will be crushed. Otherwise, harvesting here is the same as any other gas source. In every case, be sure to save enough fuel to get back into orbit. The lander will burn through it for maneuvering and life support systems, but also drilling and filtering gas. If you lose it, you lose all of its gathered resources as well as the pilot, unless you have an ejection system fitted. Should you find a particularly rich world, it can be better to make several safe trips than risk everything on having just enough fuel in the tank to escape. To leave a planet, simply apply thrusters to cross the line in the sky where the autopilot takes over. Where the zone begins depends on the gravity of the planet. Lander piloting is one of the hardest challenges awaiting you on your mission, Commander, and few new pilots emerge from hands-on training without at least one broken bone. Be sure to practice before heading out, and don't expect to master it with just a couple of words. This concludes your pilot training. Our final guide has been prepared by our futurology team to simulate possible first contact situations that you may encounter, and a reminder of the protocols you should follow in the unlikely event of discovering practical devices and ship upgrades.